Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. We got a lot of NBA news to get into. We've got a new coach hired in the desert. We've got maybe a trade coming up now as a result. We've got a lot of news to get into. The Pelicans making a decision on Zion Williamson. Plenty of things to talk about here. I'm Trevor Lade, Stu the Studio Cat. Made an early appearance here for some reason on today's show. He's on one today. Keith Smith joining me as always. Keith, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. It's good to see Stu. He's ready. He's fired up for this Wednesday edition of the show. He's really ready to go.
He's all about attention today. I did an appearance on somebody else's show this morning, and he made his presence felt on that one too. He has to be in the spotlight today. I don't know what the deal is.
Typical cat, man. What is it they say? You own a dog, you feed a cat.
He goes where he wants to go, does what he wants to do. But we've got a lot to talk about here. As I said, let's start off with this. The Suns, they have hired Jordan Ott, formerly of the Cleveland Cavaliers, as well as my Los Angeles Lakers. He was assistant coach at both stops and now is the head coach of the Phoenix Suns. So, Keith, are you surprised at all that the Suns went with a first-time hire? I know their final two candidates, including Johnny Bryant, would have been a first-time head coach as well.
Yeah, both from the Cavs, which is kind of funny given the Matt Ishbia, Dan Gilbert feud that is like not from basketball, but is spilled over into the NBA. So, kind of funny happenstance there. Also, Jordan Ott, a graduate of Michigan State, much like Matt Ishbia, much like new Suns GM Brian Gregory. So there's Michigan State ties all over the place. They're more Michigan.
The Suns are now Michigan State. The Knicks are CAA. I don't know if the Lakers are clutch anymore. We've got all these factions developing here.
Yeah, I mean, why not, right? The Jazz are now the Ainge family mafia, I think.
There it is.
Yeah, we'll see how it all comes together. But yeah, Jordan Ott's name has been around for a little bit. Kind of one of those guys you heard mentioned a lot of times for future head coach. I think he had gone on some interviews previous, didn't get it, and that's kind of how we see this go a lot of times. Suns hiring a first-time head coach, a little surprised given their push that they're not going to rebuild, that they want to see this forward and continue to try to contend, even as they know they'll make roster changes, more coming on that in a little bit. But yeah, I'm a little surprised, with that part of it, but it had leaked out that they were kind of interested in going with a first-time head coach. So, good for Jordan Ott to get his first opportunity in the NBA to lead a team. But it's in a pretty difficult spot to have immediate success.
Absolutely. Going to be a difficult spot, especially because we know now what's coming next.
Fire! Yeah. Fire!
Fire! The Kevin Cannon. Kevin Durant. The Suns, now that they've got a head coach hired, their next item on the list, on the to-do list to check off, it is trading Kevin Durant. They would ideally like to get it done, according to reports, before the draft so they could use draft capital that they receive in a Kevin Durant trade on draft night and try to restock their roster with some young talent. We also saw Durant linked to the Spurs, though the reporting out there right now is that Durant could have anywhere in the range of 4 to 6 serious suitors out there on the market. And don't forget, he is a free agent, not this summer, but next summer, which will allow him some measure of power in terms of directing his own landing spot. So, Keith, I am of the mindset that at the conclusion of draft night, Kevin Durant will not be a Phoenix Sun. Are you with me on that? You think that's happening before the NBA draft is over?
I think there's a decent chance. I think because of that desire to use draft picks, whether it is get draft picks and have a team select for them, or get draft picks that then they can select for another team and flip those picks in a subsequent deal, or, straight up 3-team deal. It might be one of those two where Durant gets traded draft night, but it actually happens after the moratorium.
Because, I would count that. I mean, we know where he's going. Yeah.
It's just going to be very tough to do this second apron issues and all the other things with that. So yeah, it wouldn't shock me if that's how it goes down. It also wouldn't surprise me if this goes a little bit longer, because it is going to be a little bit more of a difficult trade to piece together, because I don't know that the Suns they're certainly not going to recoup what they gave up to get Kevin Durant. So it's going to have to be, they're not trading him at a major loss where they're giving up assets by any means, but it'll just be, all right, what is it they're looking for? And like we talked about when talking about Jordan Ott, what is it you want? Like, are you happy with a package that's centered around picks and young players and all that? Or do you want to, really get guys who can win now? In the Spurs reporting, and to be clear, a lot of this came from John Gambadoro, who does a wonderful job with anything Suns related.
Yeah.
He had that, with the Spurs stuff, that it'd probably be Harrison Barnes, and then probably maybe a guy like Devin Vassell or somebody like that come over, because that's where you'd need to get to start matching the salary. And then all of a sudden you're in a position where it's like, okay, like now where do we go? And the Spurs are a mile from the tax and the apron, so they can take on more money in a trade without any issues. So yeah, if it's the Spurs have a couple picks in this draft, so maybe they're going to be selecting for the Suns or selecting for a third team. Who knows? But that's where I think we could see this happen sooner rather than later.
Would you be willing to part with the second pick in the draft for Kevin Durant if you are the Spurs? I would not. Okay, that's where I've been to, and I've been saying, if I'm the Spurs, I want Kevin Durant. If I'm the Spurs, I'm not giving up Stephon Castle, and I'm not giving up the number 2 pick because he's 37, right? I mean, that's the issue. You only have so much runway with a KD, Wemby, De'Aaron Fox team. If he was 32, it's a different story. Of course, if he's 32, he's not available. But if I'm the Spurs, I wouldn't be willing to give up that stuff. I had Suns fans telling me, oh, no. We have to get back at least one of Castle or the number 2 pick in order to part with KD. But I just don't see it happening. As good as he is, as talented as he is, I don't see that kind of value coming back. I think it's that 14th pick that's headed their way, and then maybe a future first or something like that.
Yeah, and to be clear, when I said they have a couple picks, I meant they do have the number 2 pick, but take that completely off the table. And then they've got a second round pick that's a decent pick coming up. They've also, as we've talked about in the past, they have a lot of other picks coming their way. They still have a swap with Atlanta next year. They have a pick from Atlanta in 2027. Their own pick goes to Sacramento. They've got a potential swap with Boston that's only top 1 protected. And then they have that future Minnesota pick down the line as well in 2030. So they're just in a pretty good spot with future draft picks. But I would, under no circumstances, give up number 2 for Kevin Durant. If it was Giannis, I'm willing to talk. Like now, sure. I'm willing to have a different conversation. He's 30. Enough younger. Yeah, he stays healthier than KD does. Like I'm more. He's also under contract longer. I'm far more willing to listen, and that's even factoring in. Dylan Harper is not a great fit in a backcourt that already includes Castle and De'Aaron Fox. But you know what you do? You figure it out. You take those guys and figure it out, and that's where you're looking at. If anything, you're going to throw another player into a trade before you're giving up Castle or number 2 to the Suns if they go for KD. The Suns fans are, being hopeful, as they should be, but you're not getting both of those things.
No, I don't think you get even one of those things in a Kevin Durant trade. Now, that said, the Spurs will not be the only bidder for KD, although there is word that KD's camp is interested in the Spurs, which matters, absolutely matters, because wherever he goes, he has to be willing to sign in free agency next summer. Otherwise, that team is not like, let's say Toronto gets into the mix and Kevin Durant, and I'm just picking a team out of the air that we know is out there on the market. Let's say Kevin Durant doesn't want to go to Toronto. All he has to do is say, Raptors, I'll play for you next year, but once I'm a free agent, I'm leaving. And at that point, the Raptors, or whatever team we're using in this example, would not be willing to give up nearly as much in the trade because it's a 1-year rental rather than a long-term solution for your team. So that's where Kevin Durant can definitely direct his landing spot. But I do think that we're going to see KD moved. It's going to be sooner rather than later. would not shock me if it's before the draft that it actually occurs. And it's not going to be just San Antonio. I think Houston gets into the mix. I think, Keith, the Houston Rockets have played this very, very well in terms of deny. No, we're not really that interested. Try to drive a hard bargain, all that. He makes a lot of sense to me in Houston. There are other teams that, of course, will be interested as well. Maybe the Raptors. They're already in on Giannis. Maybe they could pivot to KD, but Miami is always going to be a team to look at as a landing spot. I don't think they can get there asset-wise the same way the Spurs can or the Rockets can, but it's not going to be just one team that gets focused on here. I think the Suns are going to take the next few weeks, try to really sort through all the offers. There'll be a little bit of a bidding battle, and then we'll see what happens when the dust settles.
Yeah, and then on top of all that, there'll be somebody who we're not even thinking about that'll probably get mentioned at some point, right? That'll jump in because
Minnesota, I should have mentioned already.
Yeah, Minnesota for sure, but there's going to be somebody else. I mean, the people have thrown Dallas out there. That starts to get really hard to put together. But excuse me, I think it's going to be really fun. I mean, we're going to be firing the Kevin cannon for at least 3 more weeks, I think, here pretty regularly. So make sure we get plenty of gunpowder and cannonballs ready to go because we got to let that thing fly. We're in the middle of a full blown naval battle here. It's what was that, Master and Commander style, right?
There it is.
That was Gladiator on the ocean. But yeah, it's and I'm with you with the Rockets. The little trickier for the Rockets now, unless it is pick up Fred VanVleet and then immediately look to trade him to match salary. That's probably going to have to be part of it. But you do have Jalen Green's contract in there. You can kind of throw him in there. It's, if Kevin Durant was like, hey, I'm happy to come, but I don't want to play with Dylan Brooks. See you later, Dylan Brooks. Like you're out the door too. So it certainly could be the way that kind of goes. So and obviously the Rockets, the ultimate winning hand that they may hold is we've got all your draft picks. Like, do you want them back? Because let's start talking. And that there was very good reason when they made that trade with the Nets that they gave the Nets back their own picks, which Brooklyn wanted because they wanted to pivot towards rebuilding and they wanted their own picks. But they held on to all their picks, all the Suns picks in that trade. It didn't do anything with those. And that was for real reasons.
Yeah. And speaking of the Rockets, we can segue right into that. The Rockets are looking to retain their own free agents. The general belief is that Fred VanVleet will stick around one way or another unless he gets added in a trade. It's not going to be because he walks away in free agency. If it means picking up his team option and trading him, if it means coming to terms on a new deal, whatever that's going to look like, Fred VanVleet, unless he gets put in a trade for, say, Kevin Durant or Giannis or somebody like that, the Rockets do intend to keep him, as well as their other free agents. Aaron Holiday is a little bit of an interesting one because of all the reports that they're going to give more of a real opportunity to Reed Shepherd, the number 3 pick from last year's draft next season. So that'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with him. But for right now, it sounds like the Rockets want to keep this core together, but that's what they've been telling everybody. Gosh, it's been more than a year that they've been telling everybody that they don't want to blow up this core, that they want to keep their young players all together. I still think, though, if the opportunity to get KD at not too high of a price is there, or if the opportunity to get Giannis is there, it'll be interesting to see if the Rockets' resolve gets really tested. Because I think, especially given the way the playoffs played out for them, like this Rockets team is screaming for a guy like a Kevin Durant that can just score the ball in the half court. The only problem is his age. But again, you're not getting him if he's 32 years old. So I still wouldn't be shocked to see KD wind up in Houston.
I also, I'm a broken record with this, but I'm going to say it again. The idea of matching up everybody's timelines is just not a real thing that actually happens, because when a young team gets to the playoffs and gets knocked out, the first thing everybody says is got to get them one more veteran to help them get over the top, right? When you're trying to match up timelines, yes, that can be a thing when you're just starting a rebuild. Like, for example, the Brooklyn Nets. It would not do them any good to bring in a bunch of 7-year to 10-year veterans right now, unless it's truly because we're eating their contracts in exchange for draft assets. But when you're starting a rebuild, fine, try to go super young. But other than that, and just look at the Rockets cap sheet that you have up right now. If you're only listening, apologies. We'll try to explain it a little bit. You've got, right now, it's pretty clean, right? Looks pretty good. But as soon as we get into 26, 27, now if you re-sign Jabari Smith Jr., if you re-sign Tari Eason, you've already got Şengün and Green on the books for 70+ million combined. You're going to start to get really, really expensive, and it's going to be hard to get that next guy. That's why sometimes you got to make that move now. Then you do it do it today, and then you benefit right now in the immediate, and you already have the guy. Because with KD, important to note, there has been nothing but suggested that he's going to want a 2-year deal after this upcoming year runs out, and he's going to want over $100 million. I've seen some suggestions like he doesn't need to go all the way to the max, but it's going to be so close, it's not going to matter very much. So that's where, all right, if that's where you're going to go, but presumably in that trade, you've now gotten off some of the other money. The Rockets could be really expensive in a couple of years, but they've been really expensive before. I don't think they're very worried about it if they're in title contention, and I don't know that they're that far off. And I do think Kevin Durant, for at least the next 2 or 3 seasons, could really help the Rockets as far as what they have. Kevin Durant, they probably beat the Warriors, right? In the first round.
Yeah. I think they do. How many times did we see that Rockets team in the half court, brick after brick after they crushed the offensive glass, but you were just like, they were begging for the ball, pleading for the ball to go in the basket. Imagine if you have Kevin Durant, everything bogs down. Hey, KD, here, go get us a bucket. No problem, right? And he's one of the best in the NBA at it. It's exactly what they need.
And very little drop off in the way he gets those baskets. It's not like it's gotten considerably harder for him, where like a guy like DeMar DeRozan, who used to be in that same category, you could see it's gotten a little harder for him to go out and get those buckets. Now with KD, it still looks the way it did. Do me a favor, scroll down a little bit on this page.
Sure.
Sorry.
KD is just so tall that he's able to still take that shot over the top of guys.
Yes. So now when we talk about the Rockets wanting to retain their own, we talked a little bit about Van Vliet and Holiday. These are the other guys we're looking at. Steven Adams, it sounds like that's a priority for them. They want him back. They're probably not bringing him back at the $12 million he was on last year. It's probably going to be something more in the, can you take 7 or 8? Jeff Green won't be back on the deal he was back. That might be more trending towards a minimum type deal for him. Jayshawn Tate, I do think they're probably going to let him go. Eventually just roster spots become an issue, and they do have an incoming pick, so he'll probably be allowed to move on from. But the veteran guys, those guys, they're probably going to do what they can to kind of bring those guys back.
Yeah. Yep. And that'll be the plan for Houston. Now, I did think it was interesting, and this was in the reporting for The Athletic, that the Rockets already may have kind of a plan. Like if Steven Adams, if the bidding gets too high for him, they may look to pivot to Brook Lopez and bring in a 3-point shooting big. And now he's 37 years old, so he's not a long-term fit for them. But then again, Steven Adams is also north of 30. But I found that to be interesting, that they could look to replace Steven Adams potentially with Brook Lopez as a guy that they could turn to be part of that center rotation playing. And particularly because we saw this team play with 2 bigs on the floor quite a bit, Steven Adams and Alperen Sengun. I do wonder if they would try to do the same thing with Sengun and then Brook Lopez spacing the floor out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that is, pretty spot on, because that would be a little bit of a different look. Try to bludgeon teams on the boards, but you could open up the floor quite a bit more for the other guys with Lopez. And we know they were connected to Lopez a couple years ago when he was a free agent, when they signed Fred VanVleet. They were thought to be in on Lopez, and he ultimately decided, no, I'm going to run it back with Milwaukee. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It is. I was looking at this today because I just posted the Bucks offseason preview on Spot Track this afternoon. That we're this deep into the career. I think I've probably said this before, but like Brook Lopez is still here and this productive, in this good, like that. It's not like he's just signing minimums and extending his career year to year. Like still a legit starting center in the NBA. Just absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, he was one of the biggest surprise players that we've seen, where one season he is a back to the basket traditional center to the next season, suddenly he's shooting tons of threes, right?
Yep.
Crazy the way his career has gone and the way it's evolved. But here he is, 37 years old, and I don't know how much longer he's going to play, but he's still pretty productive. Not quite. I'll tell you what, Keith, when you start digging into the numbers, because I was doing it a week or two ago on Brook Lopez, the rim protection numbers have started to
slip.
Yeah, started to slip, which again to be expected, but he still gives you that floor spacing that you're looking for out of him.
And in terms of reps in number of possessions. You don't get much from him in and around the basket area.
Yeah.
Still pretty efficient around that area. It's just he's really become on the offensive end. He's a screener and a pick and pop guy in a floor spacer, but he'll shoot from really anywhere, the corners, above the break, all the way at the top of the key. Like he'll knock all of those shots down. It's just a matter of, where, is that all he's going to give you? But, still solid. And he still remains very different from Steven Adams, who is an elite, like, go get the ball rebounder. Lopez is a really good block out guy.
Yeah.
Like he's really good at walling off his guy. And then right now it's been Giannis, go and get it. And, off we go the other way. And that could be something that could help the Rockets as well there on the defensive end. Because it would, it's funny. People know I say this on Twitter all the time. Getting the initial stop on defense is awesome, but it's no good if you don't finish with the ball. If you can't get the rebound, it doesn't matter. It's now all you've done is you're just playing defense longer. You're playing for 14 more seconds. So, you got to finish those off. And Brook Lopez helps in that way, even if himself, his individual rebounding numbers aren't massive.
Yeah, he's great at blocking out his guy and letting somebody else go and grab it. And I think it's actually, Keith, I think that's even understating things when you say that it doesn't matter if you don't get or if you say the defensive stop doesn't matter. I think it's even worse if you don't get the rebound because of how discombobulated your defense is. We see now teams this past season really made the switch and started focusing more on the offensive glass because they saw how often that an offensive rebound generates a wide open corner three. So I think if you are, it's so critical that you control that defensive glass, and Brook Lopez can indeed help you with that. It's part of the reason why the Rockets were able to stay afloat despite, being stormtroopers out there with the way they were shooting. They're missing everything, but they were so good on the offensive glass that it allowed them to stay afloat. The same is true going the other way, where you have to be able to control the defensive glass if you're going to want to win a game in today's NBA. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, rebounding has always been such a critical skill, and we're gonna good little interlude here. We are gonna do some draft stuff. I put it out on social media. Do you guys want a full draft show? We'll figure out how to pull that off. That might be, maybe I'll try to bring on friend of the show Bryce Simon if I can, and we'll dive deep into draft stuff, or we'll at least sprinkle draft stuff in here over the next few weeks. We will be live on draft night, very likely, probably at least for the first round night, because we have a lot of fun with that. So that'll be fun. Hopefully you won't have to run. I don't know. Maybe hopefully you will have to run off if the Lakers trade in, but this year they don't have a pick. So you'll be able to hang out with us the whole way through, but we'll figure all the draft stuff out. We'll have some fun with that. And, but yeah, I mean, that is one of the translatable skills that we see from college and international in the G League to the NBA is if you're a good rebounder, you're usually a pretty good rebounder at all levels.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Let's jump over to a guy who sometimes can be a good rebounder. Not always. Sometimes you wish you got
I think he might have. Did he end up leading the league?
Yeah, he was up there, but there were some moments in the playoffs where you were come on, Cat. Anyway, Karl Anthony Towns treated for multiple injuries after the Eastern Conference Finals. Is he a guy that sticks in New York now that they've already moved on from their head coach?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so. He should, in my opinion. I think it would make sense for him to be there. Sabonis led the league in rebounding, by the way, 13.9. Cat was at 12.8.
And Cat was at 11.6, fourth per game for the playoffs.
Yeah, 12.8 though. That's good. That is a career high for him, and that's really good. That's a lot. So yeah. But all right, we'll move on there. The career high defensive too. 9.8 of them were on the defensive glass with him. So good year for him. But yeah, does he stick in New York? I think so. I think you got to give it another year with the players. You change the coach. Well, more to come on that. The updates are kind of all over the place. That's why we're not doing a real update. There's like 90 guys being mentioned for that job, including some that they're like retired college coaches, which is weird to me. I'm not sure why we'd go down that path, but whatever.
Phil Jackson being linked to the Knicks as well.
He might be. I don't know that he's rerunning it back in New York again. Better chance you see him back with the Lakers, I think, than the Knicks again.
Sure.
Jay Wright, though, is being mentioned, and I think
Uh-huh.
let's connect more Villanova connections to New York, but I don't think he wants to do that, but who knows? But yeah, I think you got to run it back with the players, get a new coach, see what it looks like, and then as we get into next off season, if it doesn't work, if you don't make it further or look better than you did this year, go. We talked about it a little bit. Might have been yesterday. You made it to the East Finals. Like you're close. Like you don't need to blow the team up. Like this is not, and it was 1 year of getting that far. Like let's really try to look at it and try to go, run it back with your guys and see if you can get a little further.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're New York, that's the way it needs to go. And we'll see. I mean, maybe that is just the big change that they made, was changing out the coach in order to see what they can do. And we'll see who that coach winds up being.
Yep. That said, I wouldn't be shocked if they make some other big trade, because I didn't expect them to trade for Mikal Bridges or for Karl Anthony Towns. So, who knows? The challenge, though, starting to get a little out of tradable assets beyond the player themselves. They don't have a lot of draft picks they can offer up in deals, and that gets tough.
All right, let's go here. Important news out of New Orleans. Zion Williamson to remain a Pelicans cornerstone. Now, Keith, I think there's a couple of sides to this. On one hand, this could be a vote of confidence in Zion Williamson. Joe Dumars said he had a few difficult conversations with Zion Williamson, that they're looking to move forward with Zion and all of that. And there's no question he's a supremely talented player. He's incredible. The big questions are always, can he stay on the court? And now he's got the off-court, the legal stuff that's going on. But there's also been reporting, and Shamit Dua had this, does a great job covering the Pelicans, said that the offers that would be out there for Zion aren't all that impressive either. So I do wonder how much of that is getting factored. The Pelicans are coming out and saying, "Oh, we're moving forward with Zion. He's going to be a cornerstone." Would that statement change if the offers were not as low as what's being reported out there for Zion? I am curious about that. But given that the offers are indeed low for Zion in terms of what they could actually get in return, especially now with the legal stuff going on, I think the Pelicans are making the right choice here by putting out there, he's our guy, he's our cornerstone, we're going to move forward, we're going to get him on the floor, and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think with the legal issues, the lawsuit that's been filed against him, we're now in a position with Zion where the offers have gotten even worse. It's more, hey, do you just want us to take him off your hands? And it'll be our problem. And we'll see where that goes. He did trigger his weight clauses, so his contract is not fully non-guaranteed for next year. It's about $8 million guaranteed, but you can get out of it with $8 million. And that's all you'd have to pay him. And so
that's easy.
If the team was to acquire him, that is the ultimate no risk acquisition, right? If the lawsuit and the legal stuff turns out to be false or goes away or is settled in a way where people are satisfactory, and I don't want to say happy because that's the wrong term, but it's at least settled, then all right, now you got Zion, and now you're dealing with the health issues and the weight issues, and that's same as the Pelicans, but you can always just waive him. But if I'm the Pelicans, it's well, we can do that too. We don't have to push forward here. And if you're the Pelicans, you're looking at a team that was in a really messy cap environment as recently as the trade deadline. Now all of a sudden is looking at things and saying, man, if we really need to, we can get out of the Zion business pretty easily here, get out of it. And then we're season away from having DeJounte Murray and Trey Murphy and not a lot else on our books as far as big contracts go. So I think they're probably more likely to say, yeah, the offers they're not giving us anything. We're not ready to completely give them away just yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, when he's on the court, he's an incredible player, one of the best players in the league when he's on the floor. He's just not on the floor enough. And hopefully that changes. Keith, I was talking about this earlier today on the Basketball Bulletin. 3 years, I think in order for Zion to get that max deal on whatever his next contract is going to come in, he probably needs to be relatively healthy for the next 3 years. I think there's been so much time. Like, players can shed the injury prone label, that can happen. I think Zion has to take these next 3 years and be pretty healthy. We're talking 60, 65 plus games played each season to get rid of that injury prone label and then get that next max deal. So, and it's not like, look, he's got 3 years left on the contract. I know they're not fully guaranteed and all of that and everything, but we're looking a ways off into the future. But we're kind of getting to like do or die time here for Zion, particularly if he's going to continue to be seen as that like true max level player. He's got to be able to stay on the floor and continue to produce at a high level if he's going to ever become the guy that we all hoped he was going to be when he came into the NBA with the number 1 pick.
Yeah, I think that's the key part is he going to be at that level? Because I'm with you. Yeah, it's going to have to be 3 really mostly healthy seasons. Now, let's say he broke his hand or something where it's like
that's different,
completely unrelated. It's a one-off injury to heal up and we'll go. That I think you can be like, okay, I'm not gonna get too worked up over that. Or if it's like he rolled an ankle and it's he was out for a week, whatever. But if it's another foot thing, knee thing, and he's out for weeks on end or months and misses 40 games, at that point, there's no way that deal's coming. And at that point, if you're the Pelicans, you have to think about being like, we're just going to wash our hands of this and we're just going to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to say, okay, we tried, we did everything we could. It just didn't work out. Let's all go our separate ways. And that's why he signed to the exact structure of contract he signed to, so that they can do that if they feel like they need to. And then clearly, if he comes out and he's awesome and we're obviously operating in a world where the legal stuff doesn't take over complete precedent because our precedence here. If it does, then that's a whole different universe, and we'll discuss that if and when that happens. But if it's just strictly about basketball and health, if he gets healthy and he goes out and plays really well, all right, then let's see you do it again. And then we can start talking about maybe an extension. That's where Joel Embiid got to for a little while. Then he went back to, now he's getting hurt again. But he was on the same type of deal. And we got about 3 years in, and all of a sudden, Joel Embiid's playing. He's playing really well. Then he signed that next extension. And then it was the one after that now looks questionable. But, it's happened before. And we hope for basketball reasons that I'll help with Zion. But I don't know. Just to be very clear, too, because people still get extremely confused with this stuff. The Pelicans it's not like Zion turns into $8 million only in salary. They only get that $8 million in dead money on the books if they waive him right now. Yeah. It's not, you can't just reduce his salary to that amount and then that's what he's on the books for. It doesn't work that way. You would have to waive him. Now, I don't think anybody's going to claim him off waivers, so you're probably fine with that, but that's the extreme example, and I don't know that we're quite there, but I think we're probably closer than we've been. But Joe Dumars is saying, nah, I'm good. Like, I'm ready to, run with him, and they talked about they had him go to the draft because they really wanted him to be up there. Gail Benson's talking about, we don't have to, the lawsuit stuff. Well, basically she kind of said, we'll see what happens with that. But, lawsuits happen all the time that aren't valid. So it sounds like they've got his back in all this, but some of that might be what other choice do they really have?
Exactly. So, you know what, Keith? Hey, fingers crossed. I hope everything works out for Zion in terms of his ability to stay on the court. The legal stuff is going to play out, and we'll see where all that goes. But in terms of Zion as a basketball player, I just hope he has one season where he played 70 games. I just hope we finally get.
And he was awesome.
And he's great. Like, I just hope we consistently get him on the floor because he is so good and so talented when he's out there. I hope we can finally turn the page and get Zion on the court more often than not. The NBA is just better when Zion is out there doing what Zion does. So I really hope this finally turns things around.
And to be very, very clear, we are not making light at all or not taking seriously the lawsuit and the allegations against him. We just don't know any more than what we talked about. I think it was last Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I know I talked about it some, and it's, we don't know anything more than what we know right now. So it's just not something we can get any deeper into until we know a little bit more. This is not as it might be, and I'm speaking for myself here. You can disagree if you feel differently. This does not feel as straightforward as the Miles Bridges situation did, where we had visual proof. We knew there were actual charges filed, all the things that happened there. That was this is really bad. And there's, bad stuff coming for him. We don't know with Zion because it's a lawsuit. So we don't really know where this is going to go. So we'll see what happens, over the course of time with that. We'll continue to cover it as more comes out. But, a lot of times these things don't end up going anywhere often because, quite frankly, it's a lot of rich people involved. And sometimes it turns into, hey, this is better than dragging us all through the mud. Let's just get this thing settled and move along. And wrong, or indifferent, that's usually how it plays out.
All right, Keith, let's finish up. I see you've got some stuff that you wanted to talk about here with Sports Business Classroom.
Yeah, so official announcement came out. We talked about it when Eric Pincus joined us. I'm going to be there as an instructor, Sports Business Classroom at Las Vegas Summer League, right on site there. Going to be a great week of learning. There's 4 majors that you can enroll in. There is the league salary cap and CBA. That's obviously the one I'll be involved in. Then there is a media and broadcast major. There is a major that is all around analytics and scouting this year. And then new this year, there's a major that is it's like agent side of things. So agents and NIL and all that stuff. And basically how it works is everybody takes part in the same core component of the courses where a lot of people will come in, they'll talk. There's going to be all kinds of special guest speakers. They have all kinds of drop-ins. Sometimes it's a GM. Adam Silver came in one year and talked to the students. And if somebody big time in the world of the NBA wants to come in and talk to the students, we'll pause whatever the curriculum is and let them do their thing for a little bit and hang out, and then we pick back up. But then you'll also break off, get into deep dives into whatever the major is. If you were to do the broadcasting one, they put you out there doing podcasts. They'll get you out there working with the TV crews and that for Summer League. It's a lot of fun with that. It's going to be a blast. You can check it out at sportsbusinessclassroom.com for all the information. We're getting down to it, though. There's very few spots remaining. It's about a month and a half away. Well, actually, a little over a month away now. It's July 13th, I believe it starts. Well worth it, though, if you want to pursue. Yeah, very much. Well worth it if you want to pursue a career in the world of basketball or in the NBA. No guarantee you'll get a job, but this will open doors for you if you do what you're supposed to do as part of the program. I'm super excited to be there. And if you do sign up, let them know. Use the code, all one word, NBA front office, and they'll let them know that it came from us here, and that's how you heard about the program. If you have any questions, my email's in my Twitter bio. Shoot me an email, and I get back to you and answer your questions about the program and all that stuff. But I just wanted to throw it out there because we're getting down to it on spots, and the official announcement came out that I will be there as an instructor. So really excited. And beyond that, I'll be around Summer League this year quite a bit more. We're just kind of hanging out in the arena and around the arena. So if you see me, by all means, please come up and say hello. I owe a lot of people hugs if you can prove that you're subscribed to the show, so you can collect on that as well if you want.
That's right. I'll be there out there at Summer League as well, covering the Lakers. So yeah, hopefully we get to run into some people there, and then you guys will come by and say hi and all of that. But
maybe we'll do another side-by-side show in a hotel room off 2 different mics because we couldn't figure out how to make it work otherwise.
We may need to do that. We'll figure.
Hey, if we're doing it to break down massive trades like Kawhi Leonard getting traded out of the middle of nowhere after an earthquake, I'm 100% in. If that's what it takes, let's go.
For sure. Let's do it. Let's go. Summer League, always a blast. Of course, we'll talk more about Summer League as we get closer to it. But again, thank you, everybody, for joining the show today. Make sure you do subscribe to the YouTube channel and then follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.